What Happened to Suzy Lamplugh, Part 1. On the bright summer morning of July 28, 1986, Suzy Lamplugh, a 25-year-old estate agent, stepped out of her office at Sturgis & Sons, leaving behind her handbag, but taking her purse, keys, and property details. She was on her way to meet a mysterious client, known only as Mr. Kipper, to show him a house at 37 Shorrolds Road, Fulham in London. It should have been just another routine property viewing. Instead, it became a chilling, unsolved mystery. Suzy was last seen that day as she left for the appointment, making her way, presumably on foot, the short 15-minute journey from her office at 654 Fulham Road. What happened after she arrived at Shorrolds Road remains a troubling enigma. She was never seen again. Hours later, an unsettling discovery was made. Suzy's white Ford Fiesta, license plate B396GAN, was found abandoned near Fulham Football Club on Stevenage Road. The car was unlocked, and her purse was still inside. But of Suzy, there was no sign. Despite extensive investigations, her body has never been found. Officially declared presumed murdered, her case remains one of Britain's most haunting unsolved disappearances. Who was Mr. Kipper? What happened inside 37 Shorrolds Road? And why did she never return? The questions remain, lingering like a shadow over that fateful summer day. Hello, I'm Jay Nichol, Nichol Investigations, and this is Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's true crime podcast. Ontario Cold Cases is a gripping true crime podcast that shines a light on unsolved murders, disappearances, and forgotten crimes from across the province and the world. With meticulous research, compelling storytelling, and a commitment to historical accuracy, we bring you the real stories of victims, investigators, and suspects, stories that demand to be heard. Each week, we take you deep into the world of true crime with a packed schedule of episodes. Tuesdays, historical true crime cases, exploring infamous and obscure crimes from history. Wednesdays, the Mick and Mac Mysteries, a thrilling fictional detective series set in 1950s Toronto. Thursdays, World Cold Case Thursday, investigating unsolved cases from around the globe. Sundays, Ontario Cold Cases, the latest episode uncovering an unsolved mystery from Ontario. From high-profile crimes that shock the nation to little-known cases waiting for justice, we uncover the truth, one case at a time. Join us as we explore the dark corners of history and mystery, where every clue could lead to answers and every case deserves a second look. Subscribe now wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts and never miss an episode of Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's true crime podcast. The Vanishing of Suzy Lamplugh, a timeline of mystery. The morning of July 28, 1986. The day began like any other. Suzy Lamplugh, a bright, ambitious 25-year-old estate agent, woke up in her flat on Disraeli Road, Putney, at 7:45 a.m. She shared the space with a lodger, balancing her independent lifestyle with a busy career at Sturgis & Sons in Fulham Road. At 8:30 a.m., she set off for work in her company car, a white Ford Fiesta. She'd been with the firm for just over a year, working as a negotiator, often juggling multiple property viewings in a single day. Suzy was striking, placed at a desk by the office window, a move by her employer to attract new customers. It's possible that her killer saw her there, watching, waiting, planning. But when she left the office at just after 12:40 p.m., no one realized it would be the last time she was seen alive. A timeline of disappearance. 12:40 p.m. Suzy leaves 654 Fulham Road, taking her purse, keys, and property details for 37 Shorrolds Road, but leaving her handbag behind. She tells no one where she's going. 12:45 p.m. Just 5 minutes later, an eerie clue surfaces. Her white Ford Fiesta is already parked on Stevenage Road, near Fulham Football Club. How did it get there so quickly? 12:50 p.m. A witness sees Suzy standing outside 37 Shorrolds Road, waiting. 1 o'clock p.m. A man known only as Mr. Kipper appears. He's seen talking with Suzy outside the property. 1:05 p.m. Suzy and Mr. Kipper are spotted walking away together. But where are they going? And then, nothing. The next known sighting comes over an hour and a half later. 2:45 p.m. A possible sighting of Suzy driving her car along Fulham Palace Road. Was she alone? Was she being forced to drive? Or was this a mistake? The silence drags on for hours. At 6:45 p.m., Suzy is officially reported missing. At 10:02 p.m., her white Ford Fiesta is found in Stevenage Road, parked, unlocked, her purse still inside. But of Suzy, not a trace. So what really happened? Detectives scoured every lead, but one thing became chillingly clear. There were no signs of a struggle in the car or the house. A detective later stated, "It looks as if Mr. Kipper had worked everything out in advance." A neighbor in Shorrolds Road remembers seeing Suzy with a man that day. "I thought they were engaged or married, just a normal couple looking at a house." But the description of the man sent chills down investigators' spines. White, age 25 to 30, 5'7", dark complexion, black hair swept back, smartly dressed in a charcoal, dark suit, possibly had a broken nose. This was the phantom client, the man who called himself Mr. Kipper. He made the appointment by phone, likely giving a false address. It's even possible that Suzy herself knew the name was fake, but by then, it was too late. At first, theories swirled that Suzy might have simply run away, but that idea faded fast. She had a steady job, a home she owned, and a boyfriend, a 27-year-old stockbroker. Nothing suggested she would have willingly vanished. Key locations in the mystery. 3 streets in Fulham played crucial roles in piecing together the final moments before Suzy disappeared. Shorrolds Road, where Suzy met Mr. Kipper. Stevenage Road, where her abandoned car was found. And Fulham Palace Road, where a possible sighting of her car occurred hours later. Up next, the unsolved mystery. The unsolved mystery. Suzy Lamplugh walked out of her office that day on what should have been a routine property viewing. But in a matter of minutes, her fate was sealed. A charcoal-suited stranger, a man with a false name and a deadly plan, had been waiting for her. Was it a cold-blooded abduction, a meticulously planned crime, or a case of mistaken trust? To this day, her body has never been found, and the true identity of Mr. Kipper remains a mystery. Suzy's case still haunts Britain. A ghost story in broad daylight, a puzzle with missing pieces, a chilling reminder that sometimes a single appointment can lead to a vanishing that defies time itself. The Shorrolds Road sightings, a puzzle of witnesses and clues. The last confirmed moments of Suzy Lamplugh's life played out in Shorrolds Road. A quiet street became the center of one of Britain's most chilling mysteries. 3 witnesses saw her that day, each offering a piece of the puzzle, each with a slightly different perspective. 12:50 p.m., the waiting game. The first witness, a man walking home, spotted Suzy Lamplugh standing in the gateway of 37 Shorrolds Road. She wasn't moving, wasn't entering, just waiting. There was something deliberate about her stance, as if she expected someone to arrive any moment. 1:00 p.m. The mystery man appears. 10 minutes later, the second witness, Suzy's next-door neighbor at 37 Shorrolds Road, heard movement. Sitting on his sofa reading a newspaper, he heard the unmistakable sound of someone stepping out of the house. When he looked up, he saw them, a man and a woman leaving together, both pausing to stare up the roofline of the property. What were they looking at? Something unusual? Something planned? Or was it a mere coincidence? His description of the mystery man was detailed enough that police later produced an artist's impression, a shadowy figure who to this day remains unidentified. A champagne clue. At the same time, a third witness also saw Suzy and the man, but noticed one crucial detail that no one else mentioned. The man was carrying a bottle of champagne wrapped in ribbons. Was it a gift, a prop, or a distraction? His version of Mr. Kipper looked different from the second witness's description, leading the police to create two separate artist impressions. Up next, the phantom car mystery. The phantom car mystery. One of the strangest inconsistencies in the case. Despite multiple witnesses seeing Suzy at 37 Shorrolds Road, her white Ford Fiesta was never spotted there. Instead, it was seen a mile away in Stevenage Road, parked near Fulham Football Club. Even more baffling, some claim they had actually seen two white Ford Fiestas that day. Was someone using a decoy car, or was it a case of mistaken identity? Adding another layer of intrigue, another vehicle was spotted on Shorrolds Road around the same time. A blue BMW, double parked. Was it connected? A getaway car? A red herring? Or just another coincidence in case already tangled in mystery? The questions remain. Why were Suzy and the man staring at the roofline? What was the significance of the champagne bottle? Why was her car never seen on Shorrolds Road but found a mile away? And who was driving the blue BMW, lurking just out of reach of the witnesses? Shorrolds Road wasn't just the last confirmed location of Suzy Lamplugh. It's the scene of a silent, unsolved riddle. One that has haunted investigators for nearly 4 decades. The Stevenage Road enigma. A car that stayed still, or did it? Stevenage Road, a quiet street near Fulham Football Club, became a crucial focal point in the mystery of Suzy Lamplugh's disappearance. The first sighting of her white Ford Fiesta came at 12:45 p.m., just 5 minutes after she left her office. If she drove directly from 654 Fulham Road, she should have arrived no earlier than 12:45 p.m., yet her car was already there. Had someone else driven it? A car that never moved. Or did it? 12:45 p.m. A woman leaving her home to go shopping spots Suzy's car parked immediately opposite her house. Just before 2:00 p.m., a black taxi driver who lived nearby also sees the car in the same position. 3:30 p.m. The woman who saw it earlier returns home. The car is still there, slightly overlapping the entrance to a neighbor's garage. At 5:15 p.m., the owner of the garage arrives home and confirms the car hasn't moved. Other witnesses also saw the car in the same spot all afternoon. But if it never moved, then how do we explain the conflicting sighting? A car seen elsewhere, a timeline that doesn't add up. Some witnesses reported seeing Suzy driving her Ford Fiesta along Fulham Palace Road at 2:45 p.m. If true, the man or car must have left Stevenage Road, only to reappear exactly where it was first seen. Was Suzy still alive at that moment? Was she driving alone or under duress? The argument on Stevenage Road. Adding to the puzzle, a heated argument was witnessed on Stevenage Road between 2 o'clock and 2:30 p.m. A bearded man, waiting for a taxi, saw a couple in a dispute. When his cab arrived, he mentioned what he'd seen to the driver. The police later issued an urgent appeal for this man to come forward, but he never did. Who was the couple? Was it Suzy and Mr. Kipper, or two completely unrelated people? A BMW in a second fight. If one argument wasn't enough, another sighting raised even more questions. A jogger recalled seeing a couple fighting inside a BMW, further down Stevenage Road, closer to the football stadium. Was this connected to Suzy's disappearance? Could the mysterious blue BMW seen in Shorrolds Road earlier that day be the same car? Up next, the final discovery. The final discovery. Later that evening, after Suzy was reported missing, police found her car in the same spot where it had been seen at 12:45 p.m. One final, unsettling possibility emerged. Had Suzy planned to show another house on Stevenage Road, one dangerously close to where her car was found? If so, was Mr. Kipper leading her into a trap all along? Unanswered questions. If Suzy's car never moved after 12:45 p.m., then who was seen driving it at 2:45 p.m.? Who were the arguing couple on Stevenage Road? Why did the bearded witness disappear? Was the BMW fight connected, or just another eerie coincidence? And perhaps most haunting of all, was Suzy alive longer than we thought, hidden in plain sight, right near where her car was left? The clues were there, but the truth remained just out of reach, like footprints disappearing into the fog of an unsolved mystery. The mystery in Fulham Palace Road. A glimpse of Suzy, or a mistaken identity. Fulham Palace Road, a busy stretch of London streets, became the backdrop for one of the most perplexing sightings in Suzy Lamplug's disappearance. At 2:45 p.m., a friend of Suzy's was riding along the road when she spotted something that made her heart skip a beat. Suzy driving towards her in her white Ford Fiesta. She was certain, no doubt in her mind. She waved, expecting Suzy to notice her, but Suzy didn't react. She seemed absorbed in conversation, turned toward her passenger, deep in discussion. The friend never got a clear look at the man in the car, her attention being on Suzy alone. At first, she was convinced that it was her. But as time passed, uncertainty crept in. Could it have been a similar car? Could she have been mistaken? A friend's insight. Who was Suzy Lamplugh? The friend, a 25-year-old former partner in a flat-finding business, described Suzy as very shrewd and quite hard, certainly able to look after herself. She dismissed the idea that Suzy would have been easily lured into danger. It was quite possible that Suzy had agreed to go for a drink or lunch with a client to talk over a possible deal. But was that what really happened? The burning questions. If Suzy was driving down Fulham Palace Road at 2:45 p.m., how could her car have been parked on Stevenage Road all afternoon? Was it truly Suzy at the wheel? Or someone else in an identical car? Who was the man beside her? The one she was so focused on that she didn't notice a friend waving. A fleeting sighting. A chilling possibility. If that was really Suzy, then she was still alive at 2:45 p.m. She was with someone who may have known exactly how her story would end. Up next, raising the alarm, the search for Suzy begins. Raising the alarm, the search for Suzy begins. By 3:30 p.m., an uneasy feeling had begun to settle over Sturgis and Sons. Suzy Lamplugh was missing. She left for an appointment at 12:40 p.m., and now, nearly 3 hours later, she hadn't returned. When her manager checked her desk diary, a name stood out, a chilling clue in plain sight. 12:45 p.m. Mr. Kipper. Who was Mr. Kipper? Why hadn't she come back? At 4:30 p.m., staff from the estate agency drove to 37 Shorrolds Road. Was she still inside? Had she gotten locked in somehow? They knocked. No answer. Panic setting in, they called local hospitals, fearing she'd been in an accident. There were no reports of Suzy Lamplugh anywhere. For 2 more agonizing hours they searched, calling friends, colleagues, checking her home, even speaking with her mother. No one had seen her. Finally, at 5:30 p.m., they called the police. Suzy was officially missing. A car found, a mystery deepens. By 9:00 p.m., officers began searching for Suzy's white Ford Fiesta. At 10:01 p.m., they found it. Still parked on Stevenage Road. Still unlocked. Still a silent witness to something sinister. Inside, Suzy's purse sat undisturbed. But something was missing. Her own keys, the keys to 37 Shorrolds Road, and the property details. The keys to 37 Shorrolds Road should have been attached to a bright yellow Sturgis Company fob. Distinctive, impossible to miss. But they were gone. More troubling still, the driver's seat had been pushed back, far beyond Suzy's normal driving position. Someone taller, or at least someone with longer legs, had been behind the wheel last. Did Suzy know her killer? The police began to form a chilling theory. Suzy's car was seen in Stevenage Road just 5 minutes after she left her office. If it was there so quickly, it meant she likely wasn't being forced. She must have willingly driven there. Had she known Mr. Kipper? Up next, a former detective's explosive theory. A former detective's explosive theory. Decades later, in June 2019, former Scotland Yard detective David Vidicett put forward a startling new possibility. It is my firm view that Suzy put the Mr. Kipper entry in her diary because she had to nip out to meet somebody else, and she wasn't supposed to leave the office unattended. So a cover story. Vidicett suggests that the real meeting, one that has never been explored, held the true key to the case. And there was one more twist. The keys to 37 Shorrolds Road, the ones Suzy should have had, were recovered from the office by police after her disappearance. So if the only keys at 37 Shorrolds Road were never taken out of the office, then Suzy never needed them. That means she never actually entered the house at all. The questions that won't go away. Did Suzy really have an appointment at 37 Shorrolds Road? Or was it a fabricated excuse? Who was she actually going to meet that day? If her car was left in Stevenage Road almost immediately, how could she have been seen driving at 2:45 p.m. on Fulham Palace Road? And if she never entered 37 Shorrolds Road, then where exactly did she go? The more investigators searched for answers, the more the truth seemed to slip just out of reach. Buried beneath layers of deception, a vanished woman and a name that may never be more than a ghost in a diary. The missing person misstep, a critical delay in the investigation. In the crucial early hours after Suzy Lamplugh vanished, a critical mistake was made, one that may have cost investigators the chance to identify her killer sooner. Because Suzy was initially classified as simply a missing person, rather than a victim of foul play, the investigation didn't focus on known criminals in the area. That meant that one key suspect, the man who years later in 2002 became the only named suspect in the case, was never even considered at the time. Up next, a system stuck in the past. A system stuck in the past. In 1986, police weren't using modern computer databases. Instead, they relied on an old school card indexing system. A staggering 26,000 individual records, each one manually filed and searched. The sheer scale of it meant that key connections could be missed, overlooked, or buried in paperwork. Would a computerized system have flagged a dangerous individual much sooner? Would Suzy's name be linked to someone already on police radar before the trail grew cold? By the time investigators finally turned their attention to the right suspect, it was too late. Years had passed. Evidence had faded. Whatever secret Suzy Lamplugh took with her on July 28, 1986, remained locked away, hidden somewhere in the silence of an unsolved crime. The kidnapping theory, a name that hides a sinister secret. In a desperate search for answers, investigators entertained a chilling possibility. Had Suzy Lamplugh been kidnapped and smuggled out of the country? One theory suggested that she could have been taken aboard a freighter and shipped overseas, disappearing without a trace. But there was one problem. No ransom demand ever came. Without any sign of an abduction for profit, the theory was ultimately dismissed. A cryptic clue in a name. Then something noticed something deeply unsettling. The name, Dan Kipper. A slight variation of Mr. Kipper. The alias used by Suzy's mystery client contained an eerie anagram. Rearrange the letters of Dan Kipper and they spell kidnapper. Was this just a coincidence, or had her abductor left a twisted clue in plain sight? A mother's chilling suspicions. In October 1986, just months after her daughter vanished, Suzy's mother voiced her own haunting fears. That Suzy could have been smuggled out of the country through one of the many small harbors and coves in South Devon. It was a theory that could never be proven or ruled out. Had Suzy been taken far beyond the reach of investigators? Or was the truth much closer to home, hid in the shadows of London itself? Did Suzy Lamplugh simply disappear by choice? Among the many theories, one possibility seemed almost too simple. Had Suzy Lamplugh vanished on purpose? Could she have walked away from her life, leaving behind her job, her home, and her family to start anew in secret? Had she gone into hiding for reasons unknown? But this theory quickly fell apart. Suzy had no known troubles, no reason to flee. She had a promising career, social life, and no history of wanting to disappear. More tellingly, she left behind her purse, car, and all the personal belongings she would have needed to survive. If she had truly run away, why had she taken nothing with her? With no sightings, no messages, and no trace of her after July 28, 1986, the idea that Suzy had simply vanished by choice seemed more like wishful thinking than a plausible explanation. Something far more sinister had happened that day. The War Games connection. A strange lead, or red herring. Among the many theories that emerged in the wake of Suzy Lamplugh's disappearance, one stood out for its sheer unexpectedness: her passion for woodland war games. Suzy wasn't just a city-dwelling estate agent. She had an adventurous side, one that thrived in the rugged landscapes of Cobham, Surrey, where she participated in military-style war games. Up next, a secret life on the battlefield. A secret life on the battlefield. Her diaries revealed just how much she relished these outdoor battles. Mock combat, staged with precision, complete with camouflage jackets, protective goggles, and masks. Players would crawl through the countryside, tracking down and eliminating enemies using dummy paint bullets. One of the teams she was reportedly associated with had an ominous name: Yom Kippur, a nod to the 1973 Middle East War. It was a world of strategy, secrecy, and simulated warfare. A world where the line between friend and foe was sometimes blurred. A lead worth pursuing? Investigators took the war games seriously enough to track down and interview those who had played alongside Suzy. Had she met someone there? Someone dangerous? Had her connections in this circle led her into trouble? Despite their efforts, police ultimately dismissed the theory. We are aware of her involvement in a war games group. We have spoken to people concerned this aspect. So far, there is nothing to show that her participation has anything to do with her vanishing. But in a case riddled with unanswered questions, was this truly a dead end, or just another mystery waiting to be unraveled? A grim conclusion: Suzy Lamplugh declared dead. For 7 long years, the mystery of Suzy Lamplug's disappearance had haunted investigators, her family, and the public. But by 1993, the harsh reality could no longer be denied. Suzy was officially declared dead, presumed murdered. The police, however, had drawn this tragic conclusion much earlier. As early as July 30th, 1987, just a year after she vanished. Detectives had already begun to abandon hope of finding her alive. In a solemn statement, they admitted, "It is an assumption that, sadly, we must now draw. All the circumstances of her disappearance would appear to point to that. We have certainly found nothing to show she is still alive. No body, no definitive proof, just a woman who walked out of her office one summer afternoon and was never seen again." And though she was declared dead on paper, the truth of what really happened to Suzy Lamplugh remains as elusive as ever. So that brings us to the end of part 1 of what happened to Suzy Lamplugh. But this story is far from over. Next week in part 2, we'll take a deeper dive into the investigation, explore the most compelling theories, and examine the key suspects, including the one man police later named as their only suspect in 2002. Could he really be the one responsible for Suzy's disappearance? Or is there another answer lurking just out of reach? Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast, is available wherever you get your podcasts. If you found this episode intriguing, help us keep these stories alive. Leave us a review. Share the podcast with your friends and follow us on social media for more updates on cases like this. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week as we continue to uncover the mystery of Suzy Lamplug's disappearance. Until then, stay curious, stay safe, keep asking questions, because sometimes the truth is still out there, waiting to be found.